What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Falcons podcast. We have quite a show for you today. Very spectacular indeed. We got a bunch of roster moves because today teams had to cut down to 53-man rosters. Season's just right around the corner. One more week. We lived. We lived. Preseason is finally over. It's done. We just gotta wait till Thursday night to watch the Packers and Bears. A game I kind of want to watch. But we aren't talking about that. We're here for the Falcons. So the Falcons made a lot of roster moves. Some of them started on Friday with the release of, I do believe, around three players, and then the rest came out today of who they were cutting. I'll go down the list of who we cut and what positions they were. So first, we have the safety, Parker Baldwin. Don't really know much about him. I tried my best to watch the preseason games, but I don't know. I barely knew half the people on the field. I knew some of them, which unfortunately are on this list. So, I mean, I think Baldwin was a decent player from what I remember, so who knows. We have linebacker Urique Bethune. Now, I think he made a couple good plays. I do believe it was week 2. Don't quote me on that. With preseason, not counting the Hall of Fame game. But he made a couple good plays, I do believe. Next, we have wide receiver Christian Blake. Now, this was a move that I didn't expect them to make. I believe Christian Blake was a good player. He really showed out in the preseason. He was round last year on their practice squad. He was a special teams player, but unfortunately, he was cut. Now this is, of course, before the practice squad came out. This is, of course, before the practice squad is announced. That at the time of the recording, I'll do my best to add in who's on the practice squad tomorrow. But if I don't, you can check out the Falcons website. They'll probably have some news about it on who's on the practice squad. I don't believe Christian Blake will be there, but he could. Who knows? And we have running back Tony Brooks James. He was added after the draft. Obviously, duh. But he was added, and he really didn't get a lot of play time from what I noticed. I mean, the Falcons had a stacked backfield. Like, these guys, they had so many running backs, and it was just absolutely crazy how many that we still have on our official roster. But I don't think Tony Brooks James got a fair chance. He got a pretty good chance in the final week against the Jaguars, where he had 15 carries for 150 something yards and 2 touchdowns, including a pretty awesome run of 52 yards for that second touchdown. I watched that play, and there was one of the things was there was good blocking downfield, and the speed. Like, I knew he was a speed guy, but jeez, he just sprinted down that field and got into that touchdown. But I do believe he'll be on the practice squad. Just in case of emergency, he'll be there if the Falcons need to call him up. I mean, who knows? He might get another chance on another team. Next is linebacker Richie Brown. He was waived/injured. I don't know much about him. I didn't see a lot of him, or I didn't even hear of the dude. You have defensive back Taviz Calhoun, waived/injured. I think he was added early in the offseason this year. Although, maybe. I don't know. No, I don't know. He was added at the end of last year or the beginning of the offseason for this year. But I don't think he made a lot of plays either out there on the field. Nothing that really, brought my attention to the dude. I doubt that he'll be on the practice squad, but we go to the next player, which is linebacker Bruce Carter, who was released. Bruce Carter signed a extension early on in the offseason before free agency. We brought him in during last season when we were injured and the linebacking unit was just an absolute mess. And he kind of he brought some veteran leadership, and really that linebacking group after he was brought in really did a good job. I mean, it wasn't like spectacular, but it was good enough for the Falcons. I mean, it was a lot better than what they had after the injuries. But he was cut, and that's understandable because Duke Riley just was performing in the last couple weeks of the preseason. Like yeah, if Duke Riley doesn't perform in those final weeks, I could be saying Duke Riley was released instead of Bruce Carter. But of course, Bruce Carter, he, with all the linebackers that we have there, we have Dion, Devondre. Those guys are set in stone. They're not going anywhere. Then we have Jermaine Grace, who just balled out. He was arguably our MVP of the preseason, and with Duke Riley performing pretty well in the final weeks, Bruce Carter was kind of on the outside looking in, which ultimately led to his release. So I think if he doesn't sign somewhere else, and if there's again an emergency, I do believe the team will bring him back, but who knows? We have next that we released was the defensive tackle Stephon Charles. Never heard of this dude. Never heard of him. The next person we cut was safety Chris Cooper, who I believe will wind up on the practice squad. He really was performing well throughout the preseason. He had what was it? I think it was the Washington game, which is the third week of the preseason. He played the slot. So he had versatility, and we all know Dan Quinn loves versatile players. So I figured he'll be on the practice squad. That's my prediction. Will he though? We'll have to find out here soon. Next is linebacker Trey Crawford. Now this was an interesting one. I heard when we signed him, I heard that his comp in the Falcon scheme was Devondre Campbell, which I predict that we aren't resigning Devondre. So I figured maybe Crawford would be brought up, kind of trained a little bit more to be a replacement for Campbell. And he still might. Again, this is before the practice squad is announced. But I figure he'll be on the practice squad. That's what I'm predicting. The next cut was tight end Thomas Duarte. I don't know how to pronounce that last name, but he just was recently signed either last week or early this week. I mean, I figured he came in just knowing that he wasn't going to get much of a chance to play. So, yeah, he was one of the guys that was cut on Friday. So, I don't think I seen much of him on the field on week 4, but I wasn't really paying much attention to that game. The next one was quarterback Danny Etling, the guy that we got off of the waivers from the Patriots, who played in week 4 of the preseason. Week 3 and 4 of the preseason. And from what I can tell, he's not a passer. Like, I don't think he threw a lot in the preseason. I think he might have did in week 4. That's just because he was the only quarterback playing. But that dude can run. That dude can run. So I hope that he's on the practice squad just as a camp body for next year. Because I figured that either Matt Schaub will retire or the team just might say, you know what, we're done. Like, we got young talent here. Let's get away from Matt Schaub. And who knows, Danny Etling might be a backup for the future. The next cut was offensive lineman Adam Geddes, which, from what I know and from watching, he played god awful. He was just absolute trash. This cut was justified, so I have nothing else to say on him. The next cut was tight end Alex Gray, who was waived / injured. Alex Gray, for some that might not know, he was our international player. He's a rugby player. With him, that was on our team the past 2 seasons. We kind of had an 11-man practice squad since that 11th spot was for Alex Gray, who was an international player. But it doesn't look like that this time around. I mean, I don't think Alex Gray really got much of a chance. I didn't hear his name get called a lot out on the field. I didn't see a lot of plays from him. So that's what that is. The next cut was wide receiver Devin Gray. Devin Gray, I believe he was around last season too on the practice squad. So I don't know if he'll be back there or not. But he had some good plays, but also some bad plays. But I got got not much else to say on him. Now this next one will be coming to you as much of a surprise as it was to me, although I kind of figured this, but it was wide receiver Marcus Green, our 6th-round draft pick from this draft class. Now, Green had a good camp from what I read. Green had a good camp from what I read, so it was a surprise. He didn't really play a whole lot on the field, and that's understandable because the Falcons really drafted him to be a returner, and he was in a returner battle with Kenyon Barner. So, at the end of the day, I mean, Marcus Green didn't show up at all on the punts and kickoffs. I think in week 3, yeah, he muffed the punt in a weird way. I think everyone agreed that he lost it up in the up in the sky or the ceiling of the dome. So he'll be practice squad. I don't think the Falcons will let him just walk like that. He's definitely a practice squad. So maybe there's a chance for next year when Kenyon Barner's gone. On the next, we have offensive lineman Sean Harlow, who was also god awful. Like, this dude could not pass protect. He played so bad. He was a 2017 4th-round draft pick from the Falcons, and he bounced around a few places and still did not learn jack shit. So this is warranted. I'm happy with this cut. I don't think he'll be on the practice squad. Next, we have defensive end Austin Larkin, who some that might not know, or 62 out on the field for defensive line. So he was pretty recognizable just because of that number. He made some great plays throughout the preseason. I figured he will be on the practice squad. Next, we have safety Ronald Martin, who was released. No clue who this guy was. Next was linebacker Chase Middleton. Got no clue. Defensive end Durant Miles, whatever. I do believe that the Falcons made a mic'd up of Miles, and I figure he'll be on the practice squad as well. I think he had some good plays throughout the preseason. So we'll see what happens there come tomorrow or whenever. Next is center Chandler Miller. This was expected because Schweitzer will be playing as the backup center. So Alex Mack, please just stay healthy, my dude. Please. Defensive back Jalen Myrick. Got no clue. Never heard of the dude. Defensive back Ryan Neal. Ryan Neal got a lot of attention just because of his what would you call those? His little I don't know what to call them. One-liners, maybe. He would just ask you a question like, why are buildings called buildings when they're already built? Like shit like that. That was one of them. But he had a very according to some of the Falcons staff, or Falcons reporters, he had a bad camp and obviously a bad preseason. One of the plays that just plagued him was in the Hall of Fame game where he went for the interception but ended up tipping it up in the air to allow the Broncos wide receivers behind him to catch it to win the game. And that was just bad awareness. He should have just swatted it down, ended the game, but he wanted the highlight reel. And that's understandable, but I don't figure he'll make the practice squad. Defensive end Chris Odom. Oh boy. I really liked Odom. He showed out in the preseason in week two. No, week one against the Dolphins. I think he almost had 2 sacks, but the Dolphins quarterbacks, can't remember if it was Fitzpatrick or uh, Rosen, but they just were able to escape and throw the ball away before Odom could finish the tackle. I figure if the practice squad is still an option for Chris Odom, I would expect him to be there. If not, probably another like he doesn't sign anywhere else, he'll be emergency player. Tight end Logan Paulson, who was released on Friday. Paulson was signed to an extension in the offseason. The tight end position really took a bit of a change in the preseason. And I mean, you have Luke Stalker, who can play as a fullback and a tight end, can serve as a pass catching tight end and a running blocking tight end. So I think Logan Paulson just had his time was just over. He made some decent plays in the blocking in the run game last year. Had a few passes here and there, a few touchdowns here and there too. But I don't see him coming back to the team. Linebacker Delshawn Phillips was waived slash injury settlement. He made some good plays. I think he made some good plays. I really did like really did like him. Offensive tackle Jalen Robinson, no clue. Defensive back Jason Stanley was waived slash injury settlement. If I'm not mistaken, I do believe he is the Georgia player who I think he was a wide receiver that we turned into a defensive back. I mean, since I don't know if he'll make it on the practice squad. I never really heard his name be called that much in the preseason, so I highly doubt he stays around. Kicker Giorgio Tavecchio. Ooh, yeah, that was rough. Tavecchio had a rough preseason. I don't know how many hits and misses. I don't have the stats up in front of me, but I do know that in week 3 he was 50%, 4 for 8 in his kicks. He looked off. I think ever since. I mean, I don't know. It's hard because you're the new guy, and this team had Matt Bryant, who was money automatic every year for the Matt's career in Atlanta. So Georges Vecchio probably came in thinking like, oh geez, I got to do something. I got to be good, or I'm just gonna get like booed out of town. Which unfortunately he was booed out of town. And I understand the Falcons maybe wanting to save a quick buck here and there, and get a younger talent. And Tavecchio was last season with us was 5 for 5, so it's understandable to give him another shot. But he just did not look good at all, unfortunately. Defensive tackle Jacob, I can never pronounce this dude's name. Uodi Mariner. Yeah, I didn't see him a lot. Can't really say much. Then we have kicker Blair Walsh, who was released. He was just signed earlier in the week, or last week, or the end of last week. And geez, that was a shock signing because at that point everyone wanted Matt Bryant to see. Then we got Blair Walsh. I was like, what the fuck, Falcons? Like, come on, don't do this to us. But Walsh in his one game, I do believe he made one kick. He attempted a field goal, but it was blocked. So, I mean, who knows if that was going in or not? I doubt he was getting the job anyway, because I figured he would just be brought in to maybe stink up the kicker's room, maybe make Tavecchio have a bit more confidence in himself to say, hey, this dude kind of sucks. I can do better than this guy. That wasn't the case. Offensive lineman John Wetzel was released. Wetzel was assigned in the offseason, free agency. I figured he'd just be a camp body. I doubt we'll bring him back at all. We have wide receiver C.J. Wharton, who had ups and downs throughout the preseason. In the Hall of Fame game, I think he dropped a pass. I think maybe it would have been a for sure touchdown. Just they hit him right in the hands, like right in the hands, and he just dropped it. So I don't think he'll be on the practice squad. And the next is defensive tackle Justin Zimmer, who was around last year. I figured he'll be on the practice squad this year as well. The defensive tackle position was really stacked, or not stacked, but deep this year, because the team slept on Dejan Sanat, who showed out in the preseason. He balled, and I figured very much so. That dude was pretty good last season too, and that of course cost Justin Zimmer his job. So those were the cuts. If you don't want to listen to me ramble on about these guys, you can go check out the Atlanta Falcons website. You can figure out who they cut. And now we're going to be looking at the roster breakdown, position breakdown. I mean, no surprise here. We're carrying two quarterbacks, Matt Ryan and Matt Schaub. Matt Ryan is the juggernaut. He's an Iron Man, knock on wood. And Matt Schaub, he sucked in the Hall of Fame game. Did okay in the next couple preseason games. I mean, if the season's on the line and Matt Schaub has to play quarterback, we're done. Like, there's no Nick Foles story here. But Matt Ryan will be fine. We have 6 wide receivers: Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu, Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage, Justin Hardy, and Olamide Zaccheaus, who Zaccheaus just balled out in camp. He had awesome catches throughout the preseason. He also has the ability to return punts. He deserved the roster spot over like Devin Gray and Christian Blake. He deserved that roster spot. I don't know if he'll see time on the field at all. If he does, it won't be a lot, but he'll see time on the field a short bit. And I mean, Russell Gage, he really was starting to ball out too, and I was hoping to see a little bit more of him in the preseason, but he suffered an injury and he had to get pulled out of the game for the preseason. So I'm fine with that. If I was the Falcons, I think Russell Gage has earned the 4th wide receiver spot over Justin Hardy. That's just me saying that. At running backs, Jesus, what's going on, Falcons? What are we doing? At the running back position, we have 6 running backs. From when a couple years ago we just carried 3 or 4, since we're counting the fullback. But no, we have 6 running backs. Holy shit. We have Devontae Freeman, Ito Smith, Quadri Olison, Brian Hill, Kenyon Barner, and Ricky Ortiz, the fullback. We know what we have in Devontae Freeman. We know what we have in Ito Smith a little bit. We hope that he can make a jump in week 2. Quadri Olson was a pick this year, and he really had some moments in the preseason that had his, showed his skill set. I think in the Jaguars game, he trucked a dude, and it just looked nasty. Like, oh, jeez, that was an awesome hit or truck. And Brian Hill, who he was brought in last year as depth when Ito Smith was put on IR last year. Brian Hill really balled out in camp, balled out in the preseason, and it really caused the Falcons to have a dilemma at the running back position, a logjam. And that's, according to Dan Quinn, that's not always bad. I mean, this gives us depth here. This gives us so many different players to utilize in the passing game and the run game and the goal line run game. And it helps Devontae Freeman too, because I'd expect Devontae Freeman not to get so many carries this year, especially since we have 6 running backs. Like, we have, Ito Smith is kind of like a miniature version of Devontae Freeman. They kind of have the same run style. Quadri Olson, I would expect to be used a bit more in the goal line compared to Devontae Freeman. Maybe a little bit, not a lot though. Kenyon Barner, I don't think will be getting a lot of snaps. He might get a few like screens or gadget plays or something along those lines. He's our return guy this year, and he rightfully deserved it just by existing, since Zacchaeus and Green just didn't do nothing. And Ricky Ortiz, the fullback, which I have no idea why we still have him on the team. We should probably get rid of him, but I don't know why the Falcons keep him around. He's more than likely going to be a game day inactive for every game this season, especially since Quadri Olson can play the fullback position. Luke Stalker can play the fullback position. Jaden Graham can play the fullback position. So, I don't know why we still have Ricky Ortiz around. We have all those guys that can play the fullback position. But I digress. We carry 3 tight ends this year. We have Austin Hooper, Luke Stalker, and Jaden Graham. Jaden Graham was on the practice squad last season, and he really flashed throughout this preseason, and that caused Eric Saubert, who did not flash, to get traded to the Patriots for a 7th round pick, in which in turn the Patriots cut him with everyone with their team's cuts today. So we kind of got a free pick there. Although I think the Falcons probably should have tried to get a bit more picks out of that, and just a higher pick. But that's whatever. Jaden Graham really, like I said, he really flashed throughout the preseason, making all these kinds of catches. He was imitating Austin Hooper a lot by trying to jump over people, and it worked sometimes. Not a lot of times, but it worked. I'd like him. He seems to be really. He seems like he wants this position, and that he wants to help this team win. And I'm down for that. Luke Stalker will replace Logan Paulson as our blocking tight end. Like I said, he can catch passes. He can play the fullback position. He's a nice tight end to have. I figure that if he has a good season, we'll keep him on the team next year. But that's just if he has a good season. We have 9 offensive linemen. We have Alex Mack, Jake Matthews, Chris Lindstrom, Jamon Brown, James Carpenter, Matt Gono, Ty Sambralo, Caleb McGarry, and Wes Schweitzer. So, McGarry actually is fully healed. I don't think I had a podcast come out discussing Caleb McGarry's injury. No, I don't remember that at all. But Caleb McGarry had a injury with his heart, a surgery with his heart. I can't remember the exact specifics of it. It was really all it did, I think, was just to calm the blood pressure or the heart rate, whatever. It's you can look it up. I can't. My mind's just drawing a blank. But he was expected to miss the first 4 weeks of the season because it's like a 2-week recovery or 2-month recovery for some. But McGarry only, week 4, he's like, hey, for week 4 of the preseason, hey, I'm ready to go, and he was. I believe he played 70 snaps in the week 4 game against the Jaguars, and he looked pretty good. Now, again, this was against the 4th stringers and those guys that are just struggling to make the team. But he did go up against a former Packers first round pick, so there's a little something there. But McGarry was solid. It was reported that he was a bit winded nearing the end of his playing time. And that's to be understandable since he hasn't seen the field for a couple of weeks. I mean, his performance gives the Falcons a bit of a question to who start week 1. I say McGarry. Like, I understand if he's ready to go, you put him in. Like, he's definitely the winner of the right tackle spot over what we've seen, or what I've seen over this preseason at the right tackle position. I don't know who's going to be the starting left guard. We're going to have to maybe find that out next week. But I think Carpenter will be the guy. I think Jamon Brown will be trained a bit more, especially since Carpenter his deal is, you can get rid of his deal at the end of the season. So I would figure they wanted to try and get the best out of him while they still have him around. But I understand if they don't want to start him. He's a depth player. That's great to have. If McGarry doesn't play, we have Matt Gono and Tyson Bralo at that right tackle position. Of those two, I would actually have Gono be playing over Sambralo. I mean, Sambralo just looked terrible this preseason, just absolutely terrible. Thank God he got hurt. Well, I shouldn't be saying that. Just it. I think the Falcons should open their eyes and realize that he is not good. Defensive line, we are also carrying 9 players. We have Alan Bailey, Adrian Claiborne, John Kaminsky, Tack McKinley, Vic Beasley, Jack Crawford, Dejan Sanat, Tyler Davison, and Grady Jarrett. I mean, what can you say? You know that Tack and Vic are going to be rushing the passer. Grady's going to be he's going to be out there every play, or almost every play. Jack Crawford's going to be our pass rusher in our nickel package. Tyler Davison's going to be our run stuffer. Dejan Sanat is a backup run stuffer. Kaminsky and Alan Bailey and Adrian Claiborne will be probably put along the base 4-3 setup there, our base package, the run stopping. I mean, I really did like the signing of Alan Bailey. I mean, for this defensive line position, they looked pretty good in the preseason. They had ups and downs, but it was really good. I remember week 1, Vic Beasley used a counter move, and everyone was just like, "Whoa, he learned something." But I think they'll do good this year. I mean, we have to hope, right? We have 5 linebackers: Devondre Campbell, Jermaine Grace, Deion Jones, Foyesade Olokin, and Duke Riley. As I mentioned earlier, discussing the cuts, Jermaine Grace deserved to be the preseason MVP for the Falcons. This guy had, he had a bad game 1, the Hall of Fame game. He had a bad game there, but after that, he was just on fire. Had a interception. He had 2, but 1 was called back for penalty, and he just was just all over the field. And Duke Riley really started to show up a bit more. I think one of his more memorable plays of the preseason was in week 3 when we were facing the Redskins. They were at the goal line. They were threatening the score, and Duke Riley was one of the main players that got the stops on all 3 rushing attempts in the end zone. He was a big part of that goal line stand, which is, for me, seeing the Falcons in the goal line, at the goal line, with the team threatening to get points, it's basically a given that they're going to score. Like, it was like that for a while. So seeing that gives me a bit of hope that we might have a good defense there. At the quarterbacks, we have 6. We have Isaiah Oliver, Desmond Trufant, Bleedy Ray Wilson, DeMonte KZ, Kendall Sheffield, and Jordan Miller. We know that Desmond Trufant is going to be DB1. He's going to be lining up on. He'll be lining up against the team's wide receiver 2. Isaiah Oliver will be playing against the wide receiver 1. KZ will be our slot. I would believe that Bleedy Ray Wilson would be our backup. Kendall Sheffield is also a backup, and Jordan Miller, again, is also a backup. Kendall Sheffield, I think next season will replace KZ as the nickel, and KZ will go back up to safety. But that's if the season goes in our favor, or whatever. Who knows? But I do like our depth here. A lot of talent here. Sheffield didn't get to see a lot of time in the preseason, which I was hoping he would, but due to an injury, he didn't see a lot of it. But I digress with that. Solid looking defensive back there. With safeties, we have 4. We have Ricardo Allen, Keanu Neal, Kamal Ishmael, and Sherrod Niesman. We have our boys. They're back from injuries. We have for Allen and Neal. They're back. Yes. Oh boy. They are going to be the starters, no doubt about it. Jamal Ishmael was put back at the strong safety position uh, early in the preseason, and I figured the Falcons would keep him around just because he can play now. He can play both linebacker and defensive back position. Ishmael is a bit more of a run stopping safety, in the box safety, as they call him now. He's not good in pass coverage, so that's no. Sherrod Niesman deserved his spot on the team. This dude really helped us out last year with the injuries. He came in. I mean, yeah, he had his ups and downs, but it was a lot better than who we were dealing with. Jordan Richards, wink. He was, it was a lot better than him. So Niesman got a spot finally. So that's our safety positions. And then we have our special teams with the return of Money Matt. He agreed to terms on Saturday for a 1-year deal. We have our punter Matt Bosher and our long snapper Josh Harris. But Matt Bryant is back as the kicker. Praise the Lord. Our prayers have been answered. He is back. It really didn't feel like it was a good goodbye, honestly. Like, I feel like this dude, Matt Bryant, needs to finish his career with the ring. He just needs to finish it on, I want to say a high note, but statistically he had a good season last year. Only missed one kick, but he also missed a couple games with an injury. The Falcons kind of, they needed to bring him back. Tavecchio just was not doing it. Walsh, we know what Walsh can do. Nothing good. Matt Bryant, we know what he can do, and he can do a lot of good shit. And I'm glad he's back on the team. And it's happy knowing that he's back on the team. I love him as a kicker, and plus, that when it's a field goal or point after, that's going to be money every time. You don't have to worry about a shank, far left, far right, short, whatever, blocked. Well, maybe blocked, but I doubt that. For some of those that may have questions with Matt Bryant, like why wasn't he signed? Teams are looking for younger, cheaper kickers. So that was the reason why he wasn't signed. He was also practicing kicking. I believe he was in South Alabama a week ago or 2 weeks ago kicking. And dude still looks solid. So that's our roster. That's our roster cuts. It looks pretty solid team here. I mean, if we don't do good with this team, like there's a lot of good talent. This defense looks to be really good this year. I feel like this is a make or break season. I know it's not, but we have a lot of a lot of talent here. And it would suck to see it kind of go to waste. And hopefully we stay injury free again. Knock on wood that nothing happens to our boys. I think our defense is going to be a top 10 defense this year under Dan Quinn. I think we're going to win the turnover battle, which is something that he's always pushing for. Our offense is going to be a top 5. I mean, we have Dirk Cutter back, which knows he has a lot of talent to work with compared to Tampa Bay. So this is a good team. It has to be one of the best in the league. I know that the experts will say that this team it lacks blah 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 blah. Nah, I think this is a good team. And I mean that's really it for this episode of the podcast. I'll be back later in the week with some predictions for the NFL week. I'll try to be doing this every week, giving you my predictions for games, mostly discussing the upcoming Falcons game. I mean, hey, football's right around the corner, guys. Just a few more days, we got football. So with that, I will talk to you guys later.